My wife secretly sold our family home for $450, $0 behind my back, then tried to sue me for half the proceeds claiming joint ownership. Now she's claiming I manipulated her into signing divorce papers while hiding a $200, $0 inheritance from her. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be nothing more than a lying, cheating bitch. Honestly, it all started with little signs, small things I brushed off at first. She'd be on her phone more than usual, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd get defensive when I asked where she was going or who she was talking to. But I was busy with work trying to keep everything afloat. We had a nice life, 2 kids, a decent house, and I thought we were solid. That is, until I found out she'd been screwing around behind my back. It was a random Tuesday afternoon when I first started noticing the odd changes. I was at work and Lisa called me, sounding unusually nervous. She said she had some urgent errands and needed to leave early. I didn't think much of it. But then I noticed her car parked outside our house when I got home that evening. She was supposed to be at the grocery store, but there she was, just sitting in her car, scrolling through her phone. I watched her for a moment, wondering what the hell she was doing. That night I decided to check her phone when she went to bed. I know trust is supposed to be the foundation. But I had a gut feeling and I couldn't shake it. I found messages, texts, and pictures that made my stomach turn. She was chatting with some guy named Jake, flirty, suggestive stuff. There were even photos of her in bed with him. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was cheating on me with some guy she met at her yoga class. She'd been sneaking around for months, I bet. I kept quiet that night, just sitting there in the dark, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this? How could she betray me, our family, and everything we built? I felt 1,000 different emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness, but mostly I felt numb. It was like my world was crashing down around me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd just uncovered. The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep this a secret anymore. I needed to confront her. I waited until she was in the shower, then grabbed her phone. I needed to see the full story, and what I found was worse than I expected. There were dozens of messages, all filled with lies and promises of love from her to Jake. She'd even planned to meet him that weekend. I felt my blood boil. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to me? All those nights she claimed she was working late. Lies. Every single one of them. When she got out of the shower, I was waiting for her in the bedroom, phone in hand. I told her I knew everything. Her face twisted into a sneer and she tried to deny it at first. Then she started spinning this ridiculous story about how I was paranoid, that I was accusing her for no reason, that I was just jealous. She called me insecure, said I was imagining things. But I had proof. I played her the messages, the photos, everything. Her eyes widened in shock, then her face contorted into outright anger. She yelled, called me crazy, said I was ruining her reputation, ruining our family. But I saw her for what she was, a liar, a cheat, a manipulator. In that moment I felt a strange mixture of heartbreak and rage. I loved her once, believed in her, trusted her. But now I saw her for what she really was. She was a woman who would cheat, lie, and betray everything we had just for a quick thrill. I realized I couldn't keep pretending. The woman I thought I knew had been dead for a long time, replaced by this selfish stranger. That day, everything changed. After confronting Lisa that morning, everything felt like it spiraled out of control. She was furious, throwing accusations and crying crocodile tears, trying to make me feel like I was the crazy one. She said I was spying on her, that I was paranoid and insecure. She even had the nerve to claim I manipulated her into signing the divorce papers, as if I had some master plan to ruin her life. But I knew better. I had the proof, and I wasn't about to let her spin her web of lies. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to piece together what I had learned. It wasn't just about the affair. It was the way she lied so easily, the way she manipulated the situation. I started digging into our finances, trying to understand how she managed to do all this behind my back. That's when I discovered she'd sold our family home without telling me. Not only that, she had cashed out the equity 450, without my knowledge. I found out from the bank statements and the new owner's contact info. She'd done it behind my back, planning to cash in and run. I was furious. That house was supposed to be our family's safe place, our sanctuary. She just sold it for her own selfish gain, leaving me. I couldn't believe her. Audacity. I confronted her about it and she shrugged, claiming she needed the money to start fresh, that she was tired of living in the past. But I saw through her lies. She was planning her escape and she didn't care how much damage she caused. To her, money was just a tool for her to get what she wanted, whether it was a new life, a new man, or just her own freedom. The more I dug, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd hidden a $200 inheritance from me, claiming I manipulated her into signing divorce papers to keep me from claiming my rights. She spun this story about how I was controlling and abusive, how I'd forced her into doing things she didn't want. Meanwhile, she was out there, sneaking around, selling our house and hiding her money. I felt like I was living in some twisted nightmare. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was now a total stranger, someone capable of this level of betrayal. I couldn't sit still anymore. I knew I needed to act fast. I hired a lawyer, started looking into legal options, and prepared to fight for what was ours. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she'd stolen. I also decided I needed to gather evidence of her affair and financial deception. I started taking screenshots, saving emails, and recording her calls when possible. I realized this wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about justice. She had lied, cheated, and manipulated her way through our marriage, and I was determined to make her face the consequences. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, crying, pretending to be the victim, accusing me of being paranoid again. She insisted she was the one who was hurt, that I had no right to question her loyalty. But I saw through her. Every lie, every excuse was just another piece of her game. I knew that if I didn't act quickly, she'd take everything and run, leaving me with nothing. I was angry, betrayed, and exhausted, yet somehow more determined than ever to fight back. I realized that I couldn't trust her anymore, and I had to protect myself and my kids from her selfish schemes. Over the next few weeks, the situation escalated rapidly. I was juggling lawyer meetings, gathering evidence, and trying to keep my head above water. Emotionally, Lisa, of course, played the victim at every turn, crying about how I was trying to control her, how I didn't understand her need for independence. She told everyone she was leaving because I was abusive and manipulative, all while secretly planning her next move. But I knew better. I had seen the messages, the bank statements, the hidden emails, and I was determined to expose her. One day, I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I set up a meeting with my lawyer and we started discussing our options. I wanted a full accounting of the money she'd taken, and I wanted to stop her from selling any more assets. She'd already transferred the house to her sister, claiming it was for safety, but I knew she was just trying to hide her tracks. I also learned she'd been siphoning money from our joint account, draining it for her own use. The woman had been planning this for months, possibly longer. I managed to get a court order to freeze her assets and prevent her from selling or transferring anything else. It was a small victory, but it felt good to finally have some control. Meanwhile, I was digging into her phone and email accounts, trying to find proof of her affair with Jake. I found more messages, flirty, explicit, and full of promises. She'd been seeing him regularly, sometimes meeting him at hotels, sometimes sneaking off during the day. It was clear she'd been lying to me for months, all the while pretending to be the perfect wife and mother. In the middle of this chaos, Lisa's attitude shifted. She started accusing me of being jealous and paranoid, saying I was trying to ruin her life. She claimed she was just looking for her happiness, that I was holding her back. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. Her lies had become so blatant, so ridiculous, that I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and pity. She was losing herself in her lies, and I was done playing her game. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt. I kept replaying all the moments when I'd trusted her, when I'd believed she loved me. Now I saw her for what she was. Woman who'd cheat, steal, and manipulate her way through our marriage. I wondered how I had missed the signs for so long. How had I been so blind? Every time I thought about her lying in bed with Jake, I felt a wave of disgust. But I also felt relief. Relief that I was finally waking up, that I was fighting for my dignity. Despite all the chaos, I knew one thing. I couldn't let her get away with this. She'd already taken so much. Our house, our money, my trust. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. I began preparing for a legal battle that I knew would be long and ugly, but I also started thinking about the future. I didn't want to be with someone who could so easily betray everything we had. I was hurt, yes, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in a long time, I saw a way out of this mess, and I was ready to take it. The legal battle dragged on, and I felt like I was fighting a war I never signed up for. Every day brought new surprises, mostly bad. Lisa, true to her manipulative nature, doubled down on her lies. She told everyone that I was abusive and controlling, that I was the reason she had to leave. Meanwhile, she continued to deny any involvement with Jake, even though I had the messages and photos to prove otherwise. She insisted she was just trying to find herself, to rediscover her happiness, and that I was just trying to hold her back out of jealousy. But I wasn't buying any of it. I knew she'd been planning this for months. I had evidence that she'd been sneaking around, selling our house behind my back, hiding her inheritance, and siphoning money from our joint accounts. I had the bank statements, the emails, and the witness testimonies from the real estate agent who told me she'd signed the paperwork to sell the house without my knowledge. The more I uncovered, the more furious I became. How could she do this to me? To our kids, to our family? One day, I finally got a chance to confront her in court. It was ugly. She sat there with her usual bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent, but the judge saw right through her. We presented our evidence, and the judge ordered her to produce all financial records, including the inheritance she'd hidden. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe justice was finally coming, but Lisa wasn't done. She started spinning new lies, claiming I manipulated her into signing divorce papers. She said I'd threatened her, that I'd forced her into signing away her rights. It was a blatant lie, but she was good at playing the victim. She even hired a lawyer to try and get sole custody of our kids, claiming I was unfit. I was furious. I knew she was just trying to turn everyone against me to make me look like the bad guy. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, crying, pretending she was the innocent victim, while secretly planning her next moves. I started recording her conversations and taking screenshots of her messages. I wanted to have all the evidence I could get. I knew she was capable of anything. I also started consulting with private investigators to follow her, just to see if she was still sneaking around or meeting Jake. The truth was, I didn't trust her anymore. Not for a second. The emotional toll was crushing. I felt like I was losing my mind. I'd loved this woman once, built a life with her, and now I was fighting to keep what was mine. Every day was a battle, emotionally, financially, legally. But I refused to give up. I was determined to expose her lies, to hold her accountable for everything she'd done. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just about money or the house. It was about my dignity, my respect, and my future. I had to be strong, even if it meant facing a woman who had become a stranger to me. The months went by, and the situation only got messier. Lisa's lies kept piling up, and I was gathering every shred of evidence I could find. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, physically worn out, but I refused to let her win. I knew she was trying to manipulate the system, to spin her stories and turn everyone against me. Her new tactic was claiming I had forced her into signing divorce papers, that I had threatened her and made her feel powerless. She even went as far as accusing me of financial abuse, saying I drained our joint accounts to control her. I had been preparing for this kind of game. I had all the proof, her texts, her emails, the bank statements showing her hidden inheritance, the recordings of her conversations. I also had the testimony from the real estate agent about how she'd sold our house behind my back, an outright betrayal. I knew I had a strong case, but it wasn't just about legal battles anymore. It was about finally putting an end to her lies and getting some closure. One day, I decided I'd had enough of her manipulations. I took my evidence to the court and the judge was not impressed. We had a hearing where I presented everything: proof of the sale of the house, the inheritance she'd hidden, her affair with Jake, and her attempts to manipulate the divorce process. The judge ordered her to produce all financial documents, including the inheritance, and to cease her attempts to claim sole custody. The courtroom was tense, but I felt a small sense of victory. For once, I was finally being heard. But Lisa, true to her bitchy nature, refused to accept defeat quietly. She continued to lie, twisting her stories, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation. She sat there, crying fake tears, trying to portray herself as the victim. She called me a narcissist and a control freak, saying I'd manipulated her into everything. I was sick of her lies. I knew her game. She was just trying to save herself, to escape the consequences of her actions. I recorded her every word, knowing I'd need it for the future. Meanwhile, I started making plans for what's next. I'd secured a temporary restraining order to keep her from selling or transferring more assets. I'd also filed for full custody of the kids, knowing she'd try to use her manipulative tactics to turn them against me. I realized that I had to protect my children from her toxicity, even if it meant fighting her in court for years. I also started considering my options for rebuilding my life, moving on, finding peace, and finally leaving this nightmare behind. The emotional toll was staggering. Every day felt like a hope, despair, anger, and sometimes a fleeting sense of relief. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, that I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible. I still loved her once, but now I saw her for what she truly was: a selfish, manipulative woman who'd do anything to escape accountability. I learned that trusting blindly can be deadly, and that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to fight back hard. This whole ordeal has changed me forever, but I refuse to let her win. I want to rebuild, to find peace, and to move on from the betrayal that nearly broke me. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal has reshaped me. I went from being a husband who believed in trust and loyalty to someone who had to fight tooth and nail just to keep what was rightfully his. Lisa's betrayal cut deep, but it also taught me some hard truths about people: the masks they wear, the lies they tell, and how far some will go to protect their own selfish interests. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to stand up, fight for yourself, and accept that not everyone you care about has your best interests at heart. Since the court case wrapped up, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. It's not easy. There's a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of scars. But I've started therapy, talking through everything, trying to process the betrayal and anger. I've also been spending more time with my kids, making sure they see a father who's strong, honest, and committed to giving them a better future. The house is sold now, and I've moved into a small apartment, just enough space to breathe again. I don't have much, but I have my dignity, and that's more than enough to start over. The biggest lesson I've learned is the importance of vigilance and self-reliance. Trust is vital, but it has to be earned and maintained. Never ignore the signs, no matter how small they seem. When something feels off, it probably is. And most importantly, don't be afraid to fight for what's yours, whether it's your money, your reputation, or your peace of mind. I spent so long trying to keep the peace, trying to pretend everything was fine, but that only made things worse. Facing the truth, no matter how ugly, was the only way to move forward. To anyone out there dealing with betrayal, I'd say this: don't let it define you. Take control of your life, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Sometimes, the only way to find peace is to fight your battles head on. And when it's over, remember that you're stronger than you think. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who people really are. I've come to accept that not everyone deserves your trust, and that's okay. What matters is that I've learned to protect myself and my future, and I refuse to let her betrayal destroy me. Life goes on, and so will I. I may have lost a lot, but I gained clarity, strength, and a renewed sense of self-worth. Lisa's betrayal was a bitter pill, but it forced me to wake up and take charge of my life. And now, I'm finally ready to move forward, better, wiser, and more cautious than ever before.